There's something special about seeing an old Massey Ferguson still working a field, paint faded, engine steady, heart unshaken. Today, we're counting down 7 second-hand MF tractors worth buying right now. The machines that shaped family farms and still have plenty of life left. And trust me, the closer we get to number 1, the more surprising these classics become. Number 7. The Massey Ferguson 65. The MF65 came out in the early 1960s, and the moment you walk up to one, you can feel that era in its bones. Thick steel panels, no-nonsense lines, nothing fancy, nothing fragile. Just a tractor built for farmers who didn't have time for breakdowns or complicated engineering. When you turn the key, that old Perkins engine gives a slow, honest rumble. The kind of sound that settles into your chest before it even reaches your ears. Back in its day, the MF65 sat right in the middleweight class, making around 50 horsepower, which was more than enough for hayfields, loader chores, and pulling small plows. And what made it special was not the number on paper, but how that power felt. It didn't jump or strain, it just leaned in, steady and unbothered, almost like a seasoned workhorse that had seen every field twice already. Ask any older farmer about the 65, and they'll tell you the same story. It always started, even on cold mornings when newer tractors, with all their fancy wiring, decided they were staying in the shed. The 65 would cough once, maybe twice, then settle into that warm diesel heartbeat. It's why so many small hay operations trusted it. When you've got dew on the ground and a narrow weather window, you need a tractor that shows up. And here's the thing people forget, the MF65 is one of the easiest tractors ever made to work on. You can take half the tractor apart with a basic wrench set and a little patience. No computer screens, no complicated sensors. If something breaks, it's usually mechanical, and usually cheap. That's a big part of why these machines are still affordable on the second-hand market today. You're not just buying a tractor, you're buying decades of simplicity that still makes sense. There's also a bit of heart tied to this model. For many families, the MF65 was the first real tractor they ever used, a middle-sized machine that felt big when you were young and learning to drive it. Lots of folks baled their first hay or hauled their first wagon behind a 65, and somehow, it still holds that memory in its frame. Even after 50 or 60 years, it may sit at number 7 on our list. But don't let that fool you. The MF65 is honest, stubborn, and dependable in all the ways a classic tractor should be. And coming up next, number 6 takes everything good about the 65 and somehow turns it into something shockingly more nimble. Number 6. The Massey Ferguson 265. If the MF65 was the dependable old worker, then the MF265 is the younger, stronger hand who shows up with the same attitude, just a little more muscle. Built through the late 1970s and early 80s, the 265 carries about 60 horsepower, and you can feel that bump the first time you drop an implement into the soil. The engine note is deeper, smoother, more of a steady push than a growl, and when you lift the hydraulics, there's this calm, confident rise that the 65 never quite had. It doesn't jerk. It doesn't complain. It simply does what you ask. What made the 265 legendary on American farms was its loader work. Drive one into a cattle lot on a chilly morning and you'll understand why folks still hunt for these on the second-hand market. The steering feels lighter, the balance is better, and the hydraulic response makes it easy to scoop, lift, and carry without fighting the machine. And here's something farmers appreciated more and more as fuel prices climbed. The 265 sips diesel. That Perkins engine was tuned just right, enough power to get real work done, but efficient enough that you didn't feel punished for every hour you spent in the seat. Even today, owners brag about how little fuel it burns compared to similar tractors from the era. It was a working man's machine, built with budgets in mind, and somehow it keeps proving that decades later. Another reason the MF265 remains a smart second-hand buy is its price. While mid-range tractors from other brands can jump pretty high on the used market, the 265 usually stays reasonable. It's one of those models where you feel like you're paying for the tractor, not the badge. And because it shares parts with other MF models of the time, Repairs won't send you on a wild chase out in the field. The tractor has a grounded, stable feel. You sit a little higher than on the older MF series, with a clearer view of your front loader or the rows ahead. The gears slide in with a solid click, and when you throttle up, there's this smooth, dependable push that reminds you why so many farmers kept their 265 long after newer machines rolled out. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't flashy, it was just right. So yes, the MF 265 earns its place at number 6, a practical, hard-working, fuel-smart tractor that still shows up on farms across the country. But here's the fun part, number 5 is a whole different story. It's smaller, lighter, and somehow has a reputation far bigger than its size. Many farmers call it a cult favorite, and once you hear why, you might agree. Number 5. The Massey Ferguson 135. If there's any tractor that feels like a member of the family, it's the Massey Ferguson 135. Under that symbol that sits the heart of its legend, the Perkins 3-cylinder engine, usually making around 45 horsepower, and farmers still talk about it with a kind of quiet admiration. They'll say things like, "I changed the oil when I remembered," or "that tractor owed me nothing, but it just kept going." These stories sound exaggerated until you run one yourself. The engine doesn't roar, it hums. Steady and warm, like a machine that understands the rhythm of your land. Even in deep grass or pulling a small bush hog, the 135 never feels strained. It just keeps working, honest and steady. One of the reasons the MF 135 remains one of the best second-hand tractors you can buy is how incredibly easy it is to keep alive. Parts everywhere. Cost usually low enough to make you smile, and because its design is so straightforward, you can fix most issues with a wrench, a bit of patience, and maybe a friendly neighbor who remembers working on one in the 70s. There's no intimidation, no complicated electronics, just clean, simple engineering meant for real people doing real work. But beyond the tools and the tasks, this tractor carries something deeper. Entire generations learned to drive on the MF 135. Kids sat on the fender while Grandpa baled hay. Teenagers practiced their first straight rows on summer mornings, and for many families, this was the tractor that helped pay the bills, hauling wagons, mowing pasture, or running chores day after day. When owners talk about their 135s, there's usually a soft smile involved. It's not just a machine, it's a memory. Sit in the seat, push the clutch, and throttle up. You'll feel that gentle surge forward, the kind that makes you trust the tractor right away. The view over the narrow hood is clear, and the ride, though simple, feels lively, almost eager. It's one of those rare tractors that makes small farms feel big, and big jobs feel possible. That's why the MF 135 earns its place at number 5. It's the little tractor that outworked expectations for over half a century, and still does today. But hold on, if the 135 is beloved for its spirit and reliability, number 4 is what happens when Massey Ferguson takes that very spirit and gives it real, undeniable muscle. Let's move on. Number 4. The Massey Ferguson 165. The MF 165 is the moment in the Massey lineup where everything starts to feel bigger, stronger, and more serious. When you climb onto one, you notice the larger frame right away. The hood sits a little higher, the stance is wider, and the whole tractor feels ready for the long days ahead, with around 58 to 65 horsepower, depending on the engine version. The 165 quickly became a hayfield champion across America. Farmers loved it because it could pull a mower conditioner or drag a full wagon without ever feeling overwhelmed. Turn the key, and the Perkins engine settles into a deep, calm thrum, low, steady, and confident. It's the kind of sound you hear early on a July morning when the dew is still clinging to the alfalfa, and you know you've got hours of cutting ahead of you. But the 165 doesn't rush. It just leans into the work with that unmistakable Massey steadiness. One thing that made the 165 truly special was its smooth transmission. The gears slot in with a clean, solid feel, and the clutch is surprisingly gentle for a tractor of its size. On long summer days, when the sun is high and the hayfield stretches out forever, that smoothness matters. And then there's the toughness. The MF 165 was built to live outside, in the rain, in the heat, in the cold, under the kind of weather that makes paint fade and metal sweat. Yet these tractors kept working. Many were left in hedgerows or along barns for months at a time, only to be pulled out, given a little diesel and a charged battery, and sent straight back into the field. It wasn't pampered, it wasn't protected, it just refused to give up. For today's buyers, that ruggedness is a gift. If you're running a small farm and you need real pulling power without the price tag of a newer machine, the 165 fits perfectly. Parts are still widely available, and the tractor's design is straightforward, honest, and forgiving. Climb into the seat and you'll feel the difference immediately. The tractor sits firm and balanced, giving you that quiet confidence that comes from raw capability. Drop the throttle, ease forward, and the MF-165 shows exactly why it earned so much respect. It feels like a machine built by people who understood long days, tight budgets, and the patience of real farm life. That's why the 165 lands at number 4, big enough to change the way small farms worked, yet simple enough to stay affordable today. And if you think the 165 marks a step up, just wait. Number 3 takes us straight into the big leagues. Number 3. The Massey Ferguson 175. Now we're stepping into a different class of tractor altogether. The Massey Ferguson 175 wasn't just bigger, it was built with the weight, the strength, and the confidence that mixed operation farms needed through the late 60s and 70s. With around 67 horsepower, the 175 could handle heavier implements that smaller models hesitated with. Drop a 2 or 3 bottom plow behind it, hook up a baler, or pull a fully loaded wagon, and the tractor settles into the work like it was born for it. No fuss, no drama, just steady power pushing through the soil or pulling down the lane. Start up a 175 and you will hear a deeper, more assertive tone than the earlier MF models. A low diesel beat that feels strong but never harsh. Farmers often praised its power-to-weight ratio, saying it felt just right, heavy enough to stay planted, but still nimble enough to weave around pastures, barns, and uneven fields. One of the most noticeable improvements the 175 brought was comfort. Now, by today's standards, it's still a simple, open tractor, but for its era, the cab and seating were a real step up. And beneath all that sits one of its strongest selling points even today, a durable driveline. Massey Ferguson built the 175 to last, heavier gears, stronger rear end, and a transmission that could take years of real farm punishment. You still find these tractors working cattle farms, hay operations, and small grain farms because they simply refuse to wear out. For anyone shopping secondhand, that durability is pure gold. A well-kept 175 isn't just a tractor you buy, it's a tractor you keep. Picture it in the field, the sun sliding down late in the afternoon, dust hanging behind the baler, and the 175 walking forward with that solid stride. The steering feels confident, the engine hums at a steady mid-range, and you get that sense of control, the feeling that this machine has plenty left to give, no matter how many seasons it has already lived through. That's why the Massey Ferguson 175 takes our number 3 spot, a true workhorse with the strength of a big tractor and the manners of a smaller one, dependable, balanced, and built for real farming. But don't get too comfortable up here in the big numbers. Number 2 is a surprise, newer, sharper, and one of the most overlooked sleepers in the Massey lineup. Let's dig into it next. Number 2. The Massey Ferguson 390. With the MF390, we step into the late 80s and early 90s, a time when tractors were becoming more modern, yet still holding tight to the tough, straightforward spirit that built Massey Ferguson's reputation. Under the hood, the 390 carries a Perkins engine in the 75 to 80 horsepower range, giving it a calm but confident strength. Start it up and you'll hear a smoother tone, less of the old-school chug, more of a controlled diesel hum. When you ease forward, the tractor responds quickly, almost eager, making it a favorite for everyday farm chores. Loader work, especially, is where the 390 shines. The hydraulics react fast without being jumpy, and the tractor holds its balance well even with a heavy bucket out front. For fencing jobs, feeding cattle, cleaning lots, or hauling small trailers, the 390 is one of those machines that feels like an extension of your body. Farmers running small commercial operations often talk about the MF390 the way someone might talk about a dependable hired hand. It never complains, and it always shows up. That's why the 390 became such a trusted model across rural America. It may not be massive, but it's responsive, efficient, and built with enough refinement to make full days feel smooth. The operator platform is more comfortable than the older MF tractors, and even without a modern cab, the ride feels more controlled thanks to improvements in layout and balance. Another big advantage? Low ownership risk. The MF390 holds its resale value well, especially if it's been maintained with care, and because Massey kept parts common across the 300 series. Components are still widely available: filters, hydraulic parts, electrical pieces, steering components. You don't have to worry about chasing rare items or specialized repairs for anyone shopping secondhand. That level of support means peace of mind. Take the 390 out into the pasture, raise the loader, and put it to work, and you'll notice how natural everything feels. The tractor's size gives you confidence, but it never feels heavy or sluggish. It's the kind of tractor that makes everyday jobs easier, and over a season, that consistency adds up. So the MF390 earns our number 2 spot for being one of the most capable, reliable, and user-friendly second-hand tractors on the market. Modern enough to make work smoother, simple enough to maintain without headaches. But don't go anywhere. Number 1 isn't just strong. It isn't just reliable. For many farmers who lived through the shift into more modern, high-powered equipment, it's downright legendary. Let's head there next. Number 1. The Massey Ferguson 675. When you reach the MF675, you're looking at a tractor that didn't just do the job. It changed what many small and mid-sized farms were capable of. Built through the early 1980s, the 675 carried a strong, steady Perkins engine in the 80 to 85 horsepower range, and farmers noticed the difference immediately. When you drop an implement into the soil and throttle forward, the 675 doesn't hesitate. It settles in, finds its grip, and moves with what farmers like to call honest pulling strength. That strength mattered. It meant farms that once struggled with heavy ground or bigger equipment could finally keep pace. The hydraulics on the 675 were another big step up. Dependable, responsive, and built to handle long days of loader work or cultivation without losing power. Versatility was the heart of this tractor. Whatever the season demanded, plowing, planting, baling, moving feed, the 675 seemed comfortable doing it. Farmers often mention how balanced the tractor feels. The wheelbase is long enough to stay planted under load, but not so bulky that you fight it around gate entries or winding pasture lanes. The steering has a smooth, predictable weight, and on rougher ground, the tractor walks forward with a steady, grounded stride. For operators who spent long days in the seat, the improved layout, better visibility, and more thoughtful control positioning made a noticeable difference. Part of the 675's reputation comes from its incredible service life. Many tractors of this series are still working today, decades after leaving the factory. The driveline is tough, the engine is loyal, and the hydraulic system rarely gives trouble when maintained. It became the kind of tractor rural families trusted, year after year, season after season, because it always found a way to get the job done. Some owners say their 675 didn't just stay on the farm, it became part of the farm's identity. And here's where it really shines for buyers today. On the second-hand market, the MF675 offers serious capability for a fraction of the price of newer models. You're getting horsepower, reliability, and true multi-season usefulness without stepping into modern tractor costs. For many folks, that makes the 675 not just a smart buy, but the best buy. So our countdown ends here, with a tractor that earned its place not just through strength, but through years of honest service across American fields. And now, I'd love to hear from you. Which Massey Ferguson shaped your family's story? Whether it was a small homestead machine or a big hayfield workhorse, share it in the comments and keep these memories alive. Every one of these Massey Fergusons carries a story of early mornings, long summers, and families working side by side to keep a farm going. That's the real beauty of these second-hand machines. They've lived a life, and they've still got plenty left to give. If you grew up with one of these tractors, or if there's an MF you've always wanted to bring home, share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if you enjoyed this countdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more classic tractor memories.